There we go. All right, so what I figured we'd do is we'll go over the supply and demand, but if you guys have anything in particular that you're trying to get some help on, let's just you can speak up, obviously. So I'm reading some messages here. Looks like people posted. All right, so what we'll do is we'll work on the 5-minute and hourly supply and demand. Let's just let's find one to, well, I'll tell you what, let's look at SPY, because I know a lot of people trade SPY, and we could do SPX on a blank chart as well. Just keep in mind, guys, I mean, I trade SPY off of the SPX chart still. So, but if you're looking for, the supply and demand zones, still not a bad idea. So, let's just go from a blank chart here. And, we'll go from there. Hopefully everybody can hear me. Okay. This is a weekly chart. We don't want to start there. I mean, you could start there. Well, I'll tell you what, it's not a bad idea to just take a peek at these things, guys. So 2 things to keep in mind here, right? When you're looking at a chart like this, I'm grabbing my my extended trend line, right? And if you just snap it on these 2, you can see how we went right up to it, and it gives you an idea, right? So, I mean, you can do this though on the daily. I even prefer to do it on the 4-hour, but really the daily on SPY is probably the best way to go. It keeps the lines nice and straight, and you get an idea of what's going on. But supply and demand wise, let's just look at this and say, and we will go to the daily. The weekly, we're not going to go into crazy detail about, because 2 things. One is it really crowds up the charts. But let's take a look at this, because I think it's important to see kind of where we're at with everything. If you're looking for supply, right, we're coming up to current price, right? Especially the last bullish price. Like, so we're looking for supply, obviously. So we look and we say, okay, let's zoom in a little bit more. Right, here's our last bullish candle. That obviously is above current price, which is down here. We look at where this wick is, and we look to the left and we say, is that in the body of another bullish candle? Well, yes, it is, right? So we see this candle here. Now I come and I look at the wick of this one, and I say, okay, is this in the body of the next bullish candle? And even though you'd look and see these things here, that's not the last bullish candle before this one, right? You have to go back up, and then we see this guy is the last bullish candle. So it matters consecutively, right? Which just means like which one after another. Like, you can't skip over candles. The idea here is that this was a bullish candle. The bullish candle previous to that, in line consecutively, is up here. So what that does is it makes this a supply zone. And honestly, looking at this, I can say this is also a supply zone, because I can look at where the top of this one is. I look to the left. It's not in, there's no bullish candles. There's no bodies that it lands in, right? So, but let's focus just on this one here, and we'll go from there. So color wise, I've been making these, color wise, I've been making these like this greenish color, kind of, right? It makes the numbers white instead of black. That's a lot of ways you can kind of tell the differences in colors sometimes. But anyways, what we can get an idea of here is what it's looking like, right? So let's and this is the same process, you guys, for any of the time frames that we work within. So all right, so we see that what is price done? It's come up, right? Last week, it finally tagged the supply. And this week, right, this past week that we just ended, it obviously, we really didn't go anywhere, right? I mean, SPY, had a negative week, but down by not very much. So, but we are still within the supply zone here. So it doesn't mean that we're rejecting it. We haven't gotten that rejection, at least as far as SPY goes. One of the things I'll tell you, one of the things that is worth doing is just hopping. Even if you guys are going to chart SPY, you come over here and take a look at this as well, and same price action, right? So we got inside of it. And here, you know, we ended up closing well within the supply zone of the week. So just, I would always check it back to that.
Alec, can you go left to the next supply?
What's that? Yeah, the next one up.
Yeah.
You're talking about the next one up?
I am, yes.
Yeah, that's what we were talking about earlier, a minute ago. Yeah. So the thing about, you know, just to finish this out, what this shows us is that we're still in the supply zone here. So we haven't rejected, right? And we haven't gotten a bullish close above to really give us a signal one way or the other. I think next week, guys, we're probably going to see a push up. I think we push up, hit this trend line, and then just fucking sell off going into December. That would be my guess. Just because, you know, it's a holiday week. It's a short week, obviously. Normally we see price kind of push up, and we know how everything's been acting lately. We could easily see a little bit of a rally, but same to the downside too. So we'll just have to see how it happens or how it goes. So yeah, the next one up, right? So kind of like what we were just talking about before, the way that we decide that this is the supply zone is I come up here to the wick, I look to the left, and I say, okay, we didn't go into the body of another bullish candle, right? The next bullish candle up is up here. So I look at this one, right? And I say, okay, now is this in another supply zone? So I come to the left and no, there's no bullish candle. The next bullish candle is up here. Okay. That actually comes all the way up to this, which tells me, you know, it's, you know, we could talk about this shit over here later on. But the thing is, when you're looking at this candle, I look to the left and I see it's above this candle, but it's well below this candle. And these are the two, right? So if I see where this price is and I go to the left, I'm looking, you know, forward and back in time until I find a bullish candle. Once I find a bullish candle, that's how I know that, you know, it's this one and this one that I'm worried about, not anything before it, right? Like I'm not worried about this bullish candle. I'm not worried about this bullish candle, because it has to, you know, you need to be in the same time frame, right? It needs to be consecutive. So anyways, what that does is that makes this a supply zone. So again, what we're doing is we're grabbing, you know, the body of the candle, right? And there it is. So that's our next weekly supply. Now these are pretty tight and they're big zones, but it is, you know, it's just the way it is. There's you know, you could say here, guys, by looking at this, like I can look at this chart on the weekly and I see that, you know, we found support here. We found support here as well. It acted as resistance here. So this area right here that this candle represents is a pretty big deciding factor, right? Like if we pushed up, you know, 420, right? 425 is definitely where the next like big pivot is. And again, this deviates off of what we're talking about, obviously, but just take a look at this, right? It's worth, in my opinion, it's worth, you know, checking out. I mean, you can see how there's a couple tricks here, right? And this is how I get the regular zones, not on the weekly. I do it on the 4 hour, but it's basically like this, right? I'm looking here. I can see how we pushed up. We had some consolidation, chopping around. You know, you snap that line. Normally, if I see a bullish candle like that, like with the doji or, you know, with this very indecisive, you know, candle, I'll put, if it's a bearish candle, I'll put the line on top. If it's a bullish, I'll put it on the bottom. And it's funny how you can see how shit lines up. I mean, we had a perfect touch here, almost a perfect touch here. This came right up to it and stopped. You know, we had almost perfect open right here on this. It's just, you know, it's interesting. So keep that in mind. That's going to be a decent level. As far as supply and demand goes, hopefully that makes sense, you guys, what I just did there. I mean, that's basically it. The reason that this is a supply zone and this one, right? And you can see how, I'm trying to think of a good example. There's no real good example on this one of it being retested yet. But here with this supply zone, right, the one that we're in right now, you can see how we pushed up to it, you know, and you know there's sellers sitting here, but you also know that there's some buyers sitting here as well. So next thing to look for, right, is our, you know, it's going to be our demand zone, right? So two things come into play here in my mind. We'll do the first one first, right? If this is your current price, you're looking for a bearish candle below price, right? Going back in time. So here you have a bullish candle or a bearish candle. It's, you know, you have, this is going back in time. Last week, week before, week previous. Okay, so where does this candle dip down into? I go down to the bottom of the wick here, right? And I'm using my crosshairs and I look to the left and I'm saying, okay, is it going into the body of the next bearish candle? No, it's not, right? You see that the body of this candle's down here, right? Which is actually inside the body of this candle. So it gets very questionable, but the reality is, right? You guys see that, and let's snap some lines on this so you guys can tell. Instead of using this candle, when I snap to the, you know, when I'm on the closing price of that candle, I look to the left and I can see that it's inside this candle. So when I snap lines to this, and these aren't necessarily, this isn't necessarily the correct demand zone, but this is just how I go about it in my mind, right? So if you need help visualizing it, snap the lines to the candles, and now you can see how this bearish candle is inside the body of this candle, right? You see how that works, right? We had, and it didn't close below it. It's closing inside of it, which tells me that this is the actual demand zone here. Okay, and now I come back to this candle, which is our main focus. And where does the wick go? Does the wick go down into this demand zone? No, it does not. That means that this is also a demand zone here. So we'll snap our lines on this and we'll put our rectangle here. All right, so now the next thing to do, and this is where most people kind of screw up or they don't go back far enough. And I mean, I'm guilty of it too. What I want to see though, see, I haven't confirmed. I confirmed that this is the demand zone, but what I want to see is, you know, when we dip down to this level, is there something there? Right. So now I can come back to this. I come back to where, let's say this was the current price. I go to the left, or I'm sorry, you know what? It has to be this one. Yeah, we're off the base of this. And look what happens here, guys. So this candle, right? Let's snap new lines on it. Normally I would just move those old ones, but I want to show everybody so they can have a visual what it looks like, right? So now you see how both of these candles, actually all four of these, right, landed in this demand zone here. Okay. So in that case, what I would do is I get rid of this completely. And I say, okay, this is my weekly demand. This is the king bitch right now, right? This is what's kind of owning everything right now. There are buyers sitting in this level, right? So 360, or you could say 361 down to 365. That's major demand down there, right? Big time buyers. Everybody's taking profits as it comes into that level, right? And you know that that's true because I look here and I say, okay, where's the body of this candle or the wick? Does it dip down into the next, you know, bearish candle below price? And no, it doesn't, because that's this guy here, you know, which is really interacting with some of the, you know, you want to say some of this, but this is actually your next big demand zone here. But again, I don't want to go down that far right now on the weekly. I want to keep it useful, but this is our demand zone. So let's go back. Right. So now we have our weekly ranges basically. Okay. I'm going to post this, you guys, into the I'll put it in the TR charts and plays channel. And I'll tag it everyone in case you guys aren't sure what I'm talking about here. But so that's gonna be your weekly supply, right? We're in a supply zone right now. There's one above, okay? And then our weekly demand is here. So what we'd want to see next week if we are going to sell off, right? Well, either it doesn't really matter. Let's say we sell off. We want to see a close, right? Most likely if we sold off, we'd come down into this zone here, this demand zone, right? This 386 and change to 376. But the thing is, we'd want to see where we closed. If we came down and dipped into it and pulled back up and closed above it, right, above the top of the zone, that would tell me that we probably have more price moving up, right? We still have more upside. We'll see that on a weekly basis, right? Doesn't mean it'll happen right away. It just means that within the next week period, it will, you know, it'll, that's what we're looking for. We're looking for a close. We're looking for price to eventually move up. Now, let's say price dips down into this and closes below. If we got to close below this 376.35, that would tell me that the week after, when we start that week, I would expect a bit of a push up, to retest the zone. And then I would expect, towards the end of the week, seeing it sell off further, right? And most likely come down to this 360 price, and again, it doesn't have to do that all in 1 week. But, we do see big moves, obviously. So something to keep in mind. Now, because I think we are going to push up going into next week, what I think we end up seeing next week is I think we see a push up. I think, we get up near this trend line if we are going to push up and rally. And I think we see it come back in and close inside of the zone. Okay. So I think we end up getting another close inside of the supply zone, so that when we open up the next week, what we actually end up seeing is we see some more. We eventually see maybe some sideways. And then as we get into December, we see it sell off to the south. And that's kind of what I'm looking for. So maybe I can draw this somehow. I think there's like a paintbrush or something, right? Yeah. So what I'm looking for here, right, is basically, we open here, right? We go up, we tag that, we come back down and we close something like this, right? Or potentially we close down here. I know this is all fucked up because we're on the weekly, but so it's only, we're skipping this would happen inside 1 week, right? But that's kind of what I'm looking for. A push up, tag, and come back down, either close inside, right? We close inside of the supply zone, or we actually close underneath it to end out the week. So, that's just something to pay attention to or to keep an eye on. So, all right, so let's go to the daily. So I already posted this, you guys. Oop, what am I doing? I'm fucking adding shit all over the place here. Yeah. All right, so do I save this? How do I want to do this? You know what? I posted this, guys. I'm not going to save this because I'm going to wipe the chart clean and we're going to move on to the daily. All right. So if you guys want this chart, again, that's in the TR charts and plays. That goes for anybody watching this, obviously, afterwards. And if you guys have questions, feel free to speak up, of course. So, all right. So looking at where we're at here, right? This is our week right here. So a couple things to keep in mind, I guess, here. Yes, these spies just such a shit show, man. It drives me nuts. It's such a chop fest. But all right, this is where we're at, right? We already had this push here. Okay, so looking at this chart, this is probably confusing for folks on a daily though. But look where price is here. Okay. Now, granted, this is current price. If we're looking for supply zones, right? Like, are we in a supply zone? Are we inside the body of a bullish candle? Right? And it's like, I look to the left and I say, yeah, we are. We're inside this candle. And the reason that this is valid even is because you have this bullish candle here, right? Which doesn't mean anything because it's below price. So it doesn't mean anything, but what it does mean is that price did drop down below here so that we're actually moving up. You got to kind of follow the candles, right? Here we're pushing up, down. We had a big gap up, right? What the fuck was that? Getting notifications of some bullshit. I don't even know. Doesn't matter. So we push up, right? Push back down. This is actually us pushing up, even though it's a red candle. That's just because you don't have any overnight data here, of course. Then we push down further, and then push back up again. So, man, how fucking annoying is that? I keep hearing, I got this big noise that pops off when everything's supposed to be on just do not disturb. Really fucking annoying. Anyways, all right. So what that means, right, is just that the key here is that price pushes back down, right? This is up, down, down, and then we're coming back up. So it makes sense that we're looking for a supply zone, right? Because what all this represents is that we opened here for the day, pushed up, closed here, and then gapped up, right? So it makes sense that, yeah, we're inside the body of this. So let's go and put a daily supply on this. We got to change the color. Make it gray. And then we'll put the gray box on. And this one I will leave as we move into the smaller time frames. I'm going to skip the 4 hour on this most likely and just go straight to the hourly and then the 5 minute. Okay. And that'll be our main focus on this. But, after we finish the daily. So, all right, looking here where this daily supply is at. Now I'm looking for the two demand zones down. So we're inside this supply here. I look and I say, okay, here's the top of that wick. I look to the left. What's the next bullish candle above price? Well, it's this guy right here, right? You guys see that? Hopefully that makes sense. You use the crosshairs. If you look to the right, you can see I'm right here on the where the wick comes up of the supply zone that we have marked. And it puts us right here, as far as higher than the current or the higher than that price, right? So anyways, this is going to be our next supply zone on the daily. So pretty good to snap this on. And you guys could keep, if you kept the weekly supply zones, you would see how this shit interacts. I'm not saying don't keep them, but at the same time, I don't want to keep them on this chart because I'm going to erase it anyways. This is kind of the teaching chart. What am I doing here? Oh, I want to change the color. Sorry. Okay, so that's a supply zone. Here's a supply zone. Now, if you're looking for the next supply zone up, right? It's the same process. Hopefully this makes sense, you guys. You go to the wick. I'm using my crosshairs now to look over to the left. Okay, I see this is where it would put us. So what's the next bullish candle? Well, it's this guy, right? Because the next candle back. It's above price. I can look and I can see that this one is not inside the body, right? The next bullish candle would be way up here. So that means that this would be your next supply zone, the body of this candle. I'm not going to mark it this time, but again, this is what it is. You would mark the body, you do exactly what we just did here, and that would give you your next supply zone on the daily up. Okay. So let's look for demand now. So what we're looking for with demand, right? We're looking for the bullish candle underneath price where the wicks have not come in and touched the body of another candle. So looking at that, right? And I know some people would want to make this the demand zone. The issue with this, in my opinion, is that it's too much of the supply. Okay. So this is not really demand here. Okay. You might have some type of support happening here. It would line up with the top of the wick of this candle as well. But it doesn't mean that this is really your demand zone because this is your supply. This is what you want to be paying attention to, in my opinion. All right. If we got another close underneath that 33.95.59, right, the bottom of the zone, I would be expecting more downside. So really the next demand zone, right, we go back in price or back in history with the candles, and we have this guy. We have, this big fat fucker here. So we look at the body of this, okay, and we look at the bottom of the wick, right? And I look to the left and I say, does that hit the body? Is that inside the body of the next bullish candle or bearish candle? No, it's not, right? Because if we go consecutively back in time, the body of this one's way down here, right? So if I snapped a line here using my crosshairs, I can kind of gauge this. I come over and it's like, okay, no, we're well on, that's well underneath it. So this is our demand zone here. This is one of them. So again, we're going to use the body. We always use the body. And that's how we get our clear signals, right? So if S&P, right, if SPY wants to start to drop, like if we do get a close on the daily, say Monday, right, we close underneath here, I would kind of be aiming for this down here. And think about it, it would fill this gap here too. That is something that's worth paying attention to. If this demand gets hit, okay, even just the top of the zone, that fills this big gap here. And, that's really one of the main last gaps, right? Going back in time. So would it make sense? Of course, it would make sense to see this filled. So, I mean, it's just, a lot of things line up to where it's like, okay, if we do eventually start to drop, like I said, I think we go a little higher first and then we come back down. This is a decent target. If it's, obviously I think we're going to have a bigger leg down sooner than later, but that doesn't happen right away. I still see this 380 being a good target here. Right. So, all right. So next zone down, right. this is where it gets tricky. So next demand zone down, you think this guy right here, right? It's like, okay, but where's the wick? I come down here, right? The wick, if I line up my crosshairs with it, okay, I look to the left and I say, where's the next candle? Well, it's this guy. Well, yeah, that's above it, right? But then I look to the left again and I say, is this inside something? And I say, oh, this one here, it is inside this, right? But where's this thing dip down into? This one dips down into the body of this guy. All right, so let's start from this and we'll work our way out. I think it's important for people to see this. So if this is this is the candle, right? I say, okay, this is a demand zone, okay? And which it is, definitely a demand zone. There may be something further back in history that we can work with, but we're not going to mess with that yet. Okay, I just want to look at this and say, okay, now this candle wicked down into this, okay? Price, obviously opened up here, tried to push higher, ended up dropping all the way down to the demand zone, got bought up and closed here. Now, obviously there was price action after hours that moved everything around, but this tells me, yes, this is a demand zone, right? And then what happened this next day? Price opened here, dropped all the way down, got bought up at the exact same level at this daily demand zone, right? Like if you had this marked after the big CPI event, you would have bought here every time when you saw it act like this, right? Push up and then it closed here. Okay, so that tells me that this is definitely a demand zone. This confirms it, I guess, to me, at least is from what we're seeing on the price, on the charts right now. So okay, so that's the demand zone. So next one, I put it here. Okay, so is this a demand zone? Yeah, it is. Okay, it turns out to be, it is a demand zone because this candle is now attached to this demand zone. Okay, like it's part of this. This is where price is being respected, and it's all about where is price being respected. Where are the buyers and sellers definitively, right? And they're all right here. So you have this candle is now attached to this little demand zone down here, right? So this is legit. And the next one up is going to be here. So let's put some lines on that candle, on the body of that candle, right? And you know what? Since we know that this is what we want, or we know that that is a demand zone, as well as this one down here, we'll put our squares on it, or our rectangles, whatever the fuck it is. Okay, so now we have our rectangles, right? So now we can look at this and say, is this a demand zone? Yeah, it technically is. Okay, now realistically in my head, I would look at SPX, I would look at the ES, the SPX 500 USD, because most likely we would see price action that comes down and interacts with this. Okay, but if you're just trading SPY and this is what you're using to chart and do it with, what I would recommend is always marking this down. Okay, because technically from what I'm seeing on this chart on the daily, this is not, these are not touching, so that you very well may see buyers be sitting here. Okay, so if price came down hard, okay, and we actually pushed through this demand zone, I would almost look at this like a potential demand, right? And you guys can mark these, like, don't be afraid about putting in and literally just saying like, potential demand. I mean, you literally can just put potential demand, I mean, putting that on your chart and then going, because when you're on the it's even on the hourly, right? Let's say you're on the hourly, price is coming down, it's been, it's the next few days, whatever, you see the close here. Well, okay, now you know what this shit is, right? Potential demand. You remember, because you say, oh yeah, you know what, that's that little fucking daily demand that's sitting in between two obvious demand zones, right? This is obviously a demand zone. This is obviously a demand zone, but now we know that we might have like a little speed bump zone in between here. So that's why I would do that, guys. Just mark it. But again, let's keep everything in perspective, right? We know if you had to delete a zone, it would be this little guy, because I know that price comes down, I'm gonna be watching this area. I'm going to be watching this area, and I'm definitely going to be watching this area just from what I've seen, the two big price actions here where it's gotten bought up. And you can really even say like, okay, this came down hard. Yeah, it didn't quite get to this demand zone, but realistically, it got pretty fucking close. I mean, you're talking within, less than $1. And that buyers are going to sit, buyers will start to be in place above and below these zones, right? So it doesn't have to be right at the zone, but we do get our signals. We want to see price actually touch and go into these zones and then see where the close is to get our signal. But we do know that there's buyers sitting above and above this, right? That's why price will start to flutter and fluctuate on the smaller time frames as it gets down to these levels. So, all right, so we're going to leave that on the chart. We're going to leave that on the chart for now. So why don't what was I going to do? You know what? I'm going to post this too. I'm trying to like make sure I post the charts, you guys, as we go through the classes, so that it's you don't necessarily have it all jumbled up, right? Like I think it might make it easier for everybody. Excuse me. All right, so let's go to the hourly. Let's go to the hourly and talk about what we're seeing. Okay. And now you can see these demand zones kind of where, acting the way that they are, right? It's interesting though, you want to be on the right time frame to really, you couldn't pick out these zones necessarily for what they're worth, right? As far as the days, but there are fractals inside of it, right? Like we see obvious, hourly demand zones and whatnot. So let's start up here. Let's do demand since we're still on it, and then we'll move into the supply. So a couple things I like to look at first, instead of just moving backwards and then keep going, right? I look at this as a picture here, right? And I say, okay, do I see an obvious demand, right? So I'm looking for a bearish candle that's below price. And yes, all right, I see this candle right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to snap some lines on the body of that candle, body of that candle. We're going to make it blue. And then what we're going to do, because and I can say for definitively that this is the demand zone, right? And we even had a test here, right? We had the demand zone tested, buyers were there sitting and waiting, and boom, it pushed us right up and out. Right. So this is Thursday. So what a perfect spot to be a buyer Thursday. It closed it at open, hopefully, and maybe made out decently. So, but anyways, definitely a spot to be a buyer. All right, so let's put the rectangle or square in. We'll make that blue. And guys, what I'm doing here is I'm always going to visual order and I'm sending to the back. What that does is it puts all the candles and anything I add on after this, it puts it on top of this, right? So that you're not like getting color distortions on your candles or other things that are written or put on there, right? Which matters as you get into the smaller time frames, obviously. So the reason I like to do it this way, right, is now I have my main demand zone on the hourly, right? That's our main demand zone. Now, what else do we have going on? Well, what comes down and touches it, right? Now I see going backwards in price, I see this candle, right? And now I look where it closed at. I look to the left, I say, oh, see, it's inside this one, right? Does this wick down and touch this? No, it doesn't. It's inside the body of this big guy, but guess what? This one's attached to this demand zone. So this is no longer valid, or I shouldn't say valid, but it no longer matters for what we're trying to do right now, which is find relevant, hourly demand zone. So we know this candle's up for, this is definitely going to be a demand. So let's snap a line on it. And all of a sudden it'll make sense. You'll get confirmation. You'll say, oh, of course that's hourly demand, right? Because now I can see all the candles that bounced out of that zone. This is why zones fucking kick ass, man. That's why they are so powerful, in my opinion, right? I mean, you can just see it. And yeah, this is a demand zone, but look here. As soon as this price dipped down, it tested this demand. As long as you knew that 391.87 existed here, right? We wick down, boom, you're a buyer, right? Buyer takes off. I mean, it doesn't mean it'll always happen like that. But I'll tell you what, if you get a chance on Monday, if we get a dip down into here, or especially 392, the first time it dips into this area, I'm probably going to pick up, I would be a buyer if I'm playing SPY, right? I mean, even if it's just a scalp, even if even if we are selling off and, we're not going to be bullish next week, whatever, right? I mean, anything's possibility. So, but I would know that if I would try to be a buyer here at, 394 and 392, if not 391, and that's just how we can use this. Because if you were a buyer here, boom, pulled back up, ended up closing that day back up here, right? That was what a $2.50 move basically. So, you can make money with that shit. All right. So now we have our demand zones, as far as I'm concerned, right? You could say that this right here is a demand. I don't personally I don't think it's worth putting this one on yet for two reasons, right? One is it's pretty close to where price is at, and two is you're gonna have some pre-market shit that'll happen, as well as price jumping around depending on what futures do. So I wouldn't worry too much about this. Definitely this one and this one below, I think are worth having and leaving. So, so that's my opinion. You could say, okay, hey, I mean, if price opens up back up here, right? Let's say we open up here, and this is just where it's at, then yeah, this is going to be a demand zone. Okay. But again, I'm not worried about putting this in and clogging everything up. We can work on that Monday morning, right? So, and again, it's the same process of elimination. All right. And that's the thing, guys, like, don't hesitate to just put lines on a candle, right? Be like, okay, I think this is demand. Snap a couple lines to it, put the rectangle if it helps visualize it, and then look and see what price has done every time, it comes down and touches that area. If you see, if you think, hey, this is a demand zone, and you look at what happened, how many times did price come down to that area after that zone was formed? And if every time price gets to that zone, it gets bought up, well, guess what? It's a demand zone, right? So, I mean, and that's really like, that's the main concept here. Like, you want to know where the buyers are and you want to know where the sellers are at. So if you can justify on a, with a zone saying, hey, look, every time price gets here, there are buyers that are stepping in and bouncing us back up, right? Bringing, riding us back up and, to higher prices. Well, that's the name of the game, right? Doesn't have to, even if it doesn't match, although I'd be surprised if it didn't match, right? Because a lot of times, more times than not, there's always, this system works out. But the thing is, the goal of this, right, is just to find where your buyers and sellers are at. So, I hopefully people understand, hopefully you guys all understand that, and anybody watching this after hours, or afterwards, of course, understands that that's the name of the game, right? Like, it's not about making sure everything is, you don't have to get too worried about making sure everything is perfect. I mean, you want the system to be correct. Obviously, you want to make, there's a right way and wrong way to do it. But at the end of the day, if you can justify to yourself that, hey, there are buyers here or there are sellers here, well, now you have a trade plan, right? You have a way to set up and structure your trade. So, all right. So supply zones, let's do that next, right? So we're looking for basically the opposite here. Couple things I like to do here. We could go this way, right? We're looking for bullish candles above price, right? So why don't we do this? This is definitely a demand or a supply zone. Okay. If I look where the wick is at, I look to the left. All right. It comes all the way over here. It's not inside the body of this or this candle, which is really this is what your supply is going to be up here. So we know that this is a supply zone. All right. So let's snap a line on it. And then what I'm going to do is zoom out again after we do this one. I want to zoom out and I want to see if this is interacting with anything back in the past, and we'll work our way forward like we did with the demand zone. Okay. So let's do that. We'll go to setback. All right. So we have one supply zone up here. So let's see what, let's see if there's anything back here, right? So we would be, no, there's definitely not. And, and that's the cool thing about this, right? I come up here to the wick, look to the left. I see this is all bearish candles, obviously, right? We had a little zone here, but we've already, gotten above that many times. So we know that, okay, so on an hourly level, here comes the crazy part, right? Now, you know what? I just get invalidated. Here's a good reason to do it the way that we just did it. This candle is this is our supply zone. Okay. So let's snap some lines on this. I bet you guys have already seen this. Look what happens. All right. Look what that creates now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take, I'm just going to do this. We're going to put our square on this because this is our hourly supply. It's big. It's a lot of price, but the reality is this is our supply zone. And look what just happened. This is no longer a supply zone, you guys. So, and this is why it's so important to check, because I can't, I'm not, I go through the same fucking process that you guys do time and time again. Okay. Oops, sorry. All right. So what does that mean? Why is that? Well, look what happens. We wick right up, price pushes up, up, up. As soon as it wicks and it hits this, like, talk about a great entry, you guys. Okay. On an hourly closing basis, what do we do here? Right. This is the 8 a.m. candle. So this is, this includes, the fucking 9 or 9:30 open, right? We push up on an hourly basis. We touch this hourly supply, right? And immediately sell off, right? Sell off way down here, get bought up, come back up, close here. Well, we close right here. What do we do again? So we basically we have the test, or I'm sorry, we close back up here, but we have the test of hourly supply with a close below it. Okay. That's our bearish signal, right? We tested hourly supply and we closed below it. So now we know that there's a better, the best chance, the highest probability is that we're going to get a retest and then a sell off, right? And what happens? We literally open up the 10 o'clock candle right here. We push up, we retest that supply zone. Okay. It's still active. Okay. Because our close was below it. So we retest that supply zone as supply and we sell the fuck off for the rest of the day. And where do we go? We go right back to the same demand zone where, the 8 o'clock candle went to. So, I mean, this is just like textbook picture perfect. Now, granted, Friday, I didn't trade this as clean as this could be, right? But I want you guys to see the benefit of this. Like this is, I mean, in hindsight, the more we study this type of shit, the more it's just, it's so, shouldn't say it's easy because in the moment, right? You're not sure if this is going to just rip up. Okay. But the thing is, you can structure your trade around this. You can take puts here and say, okay, if it gets, I'm going to take puts here. And if it gets up maybe, to 398.50 or 398.60, I'm going to be out. Right. So maybe I grab the 398 puts, and I'll give it 60 cents. Or I grab the 399 puts maybe. Right. So I'm in the money a little bit more, whatever it takes, it doesn't really matter. You could have your stop up here. Either way, though, this is a perfect play. Pushes up,
Alex,
test close. Yeah. What's up, man?
it's a question for you. That last candle you're putting in, does that wick into that green, other green candle?
You talking about this?
Yes,
This one?
I am. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly it, Dale. Absolutely, man. That's why I needed to get rid of that. That's no longer supply. This was the supply zone, and I snapped this line here. Now this just becomes part of this supply zone up here. You know what I mean? It's interacting with it perfectly. So yeah, no, and that's why it's smart to just kind of look at the overall picture, right? Scroll back out, check, what I'm checking is the top of this, right? The top of this wick. So I come over here, I use my crosshairs. I can see right here, this is where it lines up to, and there's no bullish candle, right? There's no green candle over here. So that tells me that, hey, this is the supply zone. And as soon as we do that, exactly what you just asked, right? This candle here wicks right up to it, closes underneath, we get the retest and the sell off. So not only is it, is it obviously a test and close below, it actually, it's confirmed. This is confirmed as a supply zone. So tomorrow, right? Tomorrow when we open, you guys are gonna be wanting to watch the hourly closes around this. If we push up, right? We push up and we touch this supply zone again and we close, at 9 o'clock, we close underneath here, right? I'm sorry. Yeah, this is the 9 o'clock. Yeah, I had that all fucking backwards. Anyways, if we touch this and close underneath, right, I would be waiting for a retest and see what happens with, with price afterwards, right? And same thing, if we, say we touch this, I'd be watching the 10 o'clock hourly close as well. You know what I mean? Because you want to get the hourly signal from this. But this is just, and that's the thing, man, all these little candles inside here, they don't mean shit. If we'll go down to a smaller time frame, and on a smaller time frame, we can find relevant supply zones that might be inside this blue area. But as far as the hourly close goes, it's all based on this fucking candle right here, right? We are in supply until we get a close above 402.43 on the hourly. So that's going to be tough, right? There's a lot of sellers sitting up here. This is a big area, but at the same time, you'll see it respected like that. We'll see if when we finally get an hourly close above 402.43, that's when you'll see it go north, and we'll probably come up to like this 408, 410, 411 daily supply area. So, all right. So that is our hourly supply and demand. We can go, let's go find the next supply up just so we have it, guys. But what I'm gonna do is yeah, let me take a picture of this so I can share it. All right. Let's-
What if that kind of wicked above that zone?
What?
What if that last candle wicked above the zone? Then what happens?
Which candle?
Last green candle.
This one here, or the one that we were talking about?
That one right there. Yeah.
This one, well, if it wicked above,
Right.
yeah, it doesn't matter. If it wicks, it has to close above it. So
Okay,
you
gotcha.
could wick all the way up here, and if you come back down and close inside of this, then we still don't have the signal. You know, I mean, we can look at it and say, hey, it's getting more bullish, but we don't have we don't have a bullish hourly signal until we get an hourly close above that 402.43. And that's why it's tough. That's why it can be tough, right? In real time, you know, you got to wait for that hourly close. You know, in real time, I mean, it could be way up here by the time the hour closes, you know. So that's why we use the smaller time frames as well. But again, you know, use whatever, you know, use multiple time frames. Try to make it, you know, you find ones that work for what you're trading off of. But yeah, no, it doesn't matter how far we wick above. And we see that on the 5-minute all the time, where price will look like it's going to rip back up, right? It gets above the supply zone, the 5-minute supply. But the thing is, right before that candle closes, price gets pushed back down, and then we see a reversal, right? And that's the fake out. That's the fake out that comes from, you know, it's tough because you're either tagging out of your plays, you know, you're thinking, all right, it's going to move against me. I really don't want to eat, you know, this much if it keeps on going. You know, or you get into it thinking, hey, look, it's above it, it's going to rip, it's going to keep going, so I'm going to buy the calls. And what does it do? It turns around, comes back down, and you know, and ends up dropping afterwards. So yeah, so no, that's the thing. Wicking above makes no difference. We want to know where the close is at, and go from there. So let's look and see where the next hourly supply is, just out of shits and giggles here. And it is way up here. So we knew, right, that, see if I can make it to where you guys can see it. Yeah, so using my crosshairs, right, this is the highest price had been, you know, back over here, back near current time frame. So we come over here to this, you know, obviously this huge drop. So let's zoom in a little bit here. So that would be somewhere right around here, guys. So where do? We go up looking for the next, you know, the next bullish candle. So that would be this guy right here. So what I want to do is I want to see where that lines up, right? So I use my crosshairs. I look to the left. I see it's right about here, and there's nothing here but, you know, bearish candles. So I know that, okay, that's going to be my next supply zone. So again, let's just throw it in there so we have it. That's a ways up. But again, look at what price did. We have massive movements on SPY, obviously, and the S&P, you know, in recent days, or in recent weeks. But yeah, so we grab the body of this, okay, and that's your next hourly supply zone after the big fucker that we have, right? So it gives you an idea of how much price can move here. If we start moving up, price could easily run up to that 413 area, in my opinion. Right? It could still close the day. It could run all the way up, tag this, and close the day inside this next daily supply that's in gray. Right? But the thing is, I mean, that's more than possible to see it. If we start to get a bullish run, that would be one of my targets, is 113.50. You know what I mean? If I was in calls, I would be getting out of almost all of them, except maybe a couple, right up here, because I know that the chance is that it's going to touch this, pull back, and then, you know, from there, we don't really know. Maybe it keeps going. Maybe it drops back down some more. So I would be taking my profits as we approach 113 and 113.50. So, all right. So that is hourly. Let's do the 5-minute, and you know what? Let's do this real quick. Hopefully this won't bother you guys too much. That's a blue one. Yeah. So what I want to do is create a group here. And again, guys, that's down here. right? Just above the question mark gives you your object tree. And then you can do this. You can create groups. So we know that that's part of the group. Let's see, that one's going to be part of the group. And what I'm doing is as I click on this, I'm looking to see what color this is. If it's blue, then I know it's, you know, it's a 1 hour, and that's what I'm going to do. And I'm just moving it along. So every time I stack it in, actually I can do that, make it a lot quicker. And what I'm going to do is turn this off. All right, so now we have a gray one. See how I clicked on that and that's gray? So now I'm going to create a new object group. Call it the daily. Right, now we have daily. So now I'm clicking on that. That's gray too. It's going to the daily. Hang with me for a minute. That way I don't have to delete the whole thing. Oop, what the fuck? So now rectangles, what color is that? I think that's gray, right? Yeah. All right, so that would be a daily rectangle. That would be a daily rectangle. Oop. There we go. This would be a daily rectangle. That looks like a daily rectangle. I'm just going to check, make sure that's still gray. Yes, it is. All right, that should turn to blue. Yeah. And now that one's blue. Okay. So that's going to the 1 hour. Oh, no, it wants to be a prick. There we go. Fucking 1 hour. 1 hour. 1 hour. 1 hour. Okay, lovely. Look at that. So now we can just make these things invisible. That's why I did that. All right. So let's go to the 5-minute, guys, and we will do this quick. And then, you know, we can answer any more questions and wrap this up. And again, I'll be around here today, guys. So I'm happy to answer more questions. We'll do another call, you know, and just kind of work our way through. So what I would do here, the way that I would look for the main peaks. All right. And again, I'm not just automatically tagging them, you know, or grabbing them. I'm looking for the main peaks, right? And I'm saying, okay, what's the highest, you know, bear or bullish candle to grab my supply zones, right? So I see this candle right here, guys. Hopefully you can see it. Yeah, I can get rid of that volume too. So yeah, we have this bullish candle here. I look at the wick, I look to the left, okay? And sorry, they're trying to cook shit for Thanksgiving. The yeah, so the wick, you know, wicks up to the top here. I look to the left. There's no bullish candle here, so I know that that's going to be a supply zone, right? And this is what I do with my eyes, you know, just during the day. Like I look around, I look at charts, and this is what I'm looking for, right? I'm looking for where, you know, zones that kind of make sense, right? You know, that's an obvious supply, in my opinion.
Alec, on these ones right now you're showing on that supply zone, I quite often wait for it to go above the wick too, because sometimes it goes to the wick and comes back down again.
Yeah, you got to wait for the closing price.
Okay, gotcha.
You got to wait for the candle to close. If the candle's not closed, then you don't have a signal. Okay, we just know that this is because you'll see exactly that. You'll see price push up. I mean, it can go all the way up, right? I mean, it can go all, you know, way the fuck up. You see some of these wicks. I mean, you know, some of these wicks are pretty big, but the thing is, you can see it push all the way up, pull back down, and close either inside of it or even underneath it, right? And that's where you get your signal. So yeah, you got to wait for that candle close, and that goes for any time frame, right? Like you have to, like those weekly zones we did, those are great, but you have to wait for the week to end to really get the signal. So like
Okay,
they're great to look. Yeah, they're great to look back on, right? It's the same with the daily candles. It's nice to have those zones, but in real time during the middle of the trading day, we need to have zones that are practical, right? That's why the 1 hour and the 5 minute and the 15 minute, the 30 minute, if you like using
So
that.
it's not really the retest, it's actually the end of the candle sign.
Well, so the close of the candle gives you the signal, and then the retest happens afterwards. So what we were showing on the hourly here, right, was this right here. So remember, this is the line, right? See where my crosshairs is? That's the line. Like I can throw a line in here just for now, and we'll just delete it again. But imagine that should be blue, right? On this hourly. That was the demand. So this candle here, this 8 o'clock candle, pushed up. Okay. You see how I'm sitting next to it so it doesn't cover it. You see how price came up into the supply zone, just above the bottom of the zone. Remember, this is the bottom of the zone. So that's the test. And then we closed right here. So once that closed, that gave us a bearish signal. Okay. The retest happened as soon as as soon as this candle closed, it opened up here, right at this bearish candle here, and it pushed up. We got the retest, and that would be our bearish entry, right? And then we got the sell-off. So hopefully that makes sense, Dale. And that's because it's both, right? You need, but it has to happen in the same order, right? You need that candle close, and then you get the retest. And because this was a bearish close, because we tested a supply zone and closed underneath it, this retest, right, we expect it to still act as supply. You know what I'm saying? Like this supply zone is still in control. It's different than when we close above a supply zone and then we retest it and it acts as support instead of resistance. Does that make sense?
Yes. Thank you.
Yep. Cool. No, it's a good question, man. And I mean, it's something to me, and I've said this before, guys. So don't, obviously ask questions, because to me, like it seems very matter of the fact, but I've been doing it for a long time. So the thing is, like, ask these questions, because it will become, I mean, with practice, you guys will be like, oh, this makes, this is just the way it is. But the path to get there, I forget, that people, having it explained a few times is why you guys are here. So, yeah, don't be afraid to ask questions, because that's a good question, because that's the same. I mean, this is critical. Like this is where we make our money with this, right? This is where this whole strategy makes the best money, right? We get our signals off of these hourly zones. We wait for the retest, right? You trust the system, whatever you want to call it, right? You have your close, maybe you have your candle wick up, like we were saying, 398.60 is your stop loss, right? Somewhere up here, give yourself a little bit of room, but you already got this hourly close. So what happens? You get the retest and it sold off. I realized, guys, I was behind on an hour. This is the candle that the cash open happened. And that's why I don't think we caught it as nice. Like this happened, there was a half hour of price action here before this candle really played out, before the cash opened. So I was thinking the cash open was on this green candle, but it wasn't. But it doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter. That's why, it's important to have the pre-market data, in my opinion, because you could have seen this, right? And getting into a position right there at 9:30, you would have been able to see this on the hourly. And let's see if we tested it already. No, yeah. So we actually did the retest here. So this is something to keep in mind. This was the test, okay, of from the 8 a.m. candle, okay, 8:20, right, and then it closed right here. So it closed on this candle. 9 a.m. opened here, okay. 9 a.m. to 9:04 and change. 9:05 opened right here. We got the retest, right? So the retest happened at 9:05. So we don't have, we can't do anything. We don't have a cash open. But the thing is, then it came down, right? And at 9:30, that's this candle opens right here. You get a little bit of a push north again. And yeah, it didn't retest the zone completely, but this is where you'll see us be like, hey, you know what? We saw it, retested it already. So on the hourly close and the retest, so you could grab puts here at open just to kind of play it, right? And then at that point, maybe you'll have your stop, you know, up here at like, you know, 398.50 or something, right? Give yourself a little bit of room, or have a stop right here above these wicks, you know, and just say, hey, I'm not going to give it any more. It would have played out here, right? And you wouldn't have necessarily known that to be the case if you weren't looking at the hourly and had seen how this interacted. So anyways, I mean, I didn't catch this, guys, right on Friday morning. I don't even remember what I played right off the bat Friday morning, but again, it doesn't mean that the play wasn't there, right? That was a nice clean play. Would have been a great entry here, even though it wasn't the perfect retest. So most people miss this, which is fine, you know. Again, you don't have to chase price, but looking back, we can say, okay, if we look at the hourly, right? Now we knew, because at 9:30 we were basically down here somewhere. We had already dipped in and rejected off of that, right? So we already had the retest and the push down. So at 9:30 we opened, we tried to go a little bit higher, and then it failed. And as it started to fail, you can grab those puts right away. That would have been a great play, obviously. So something to keep in mind, guys.
That's a great example.
Yeah, no, thanks for the question, Dale. That's exactly what I mean, it's right on. I mean, you know, that's what we're looking for, and it's what we need to keep our eyes open for. So okay, so now, right, we have this supply zone. So now we're going to go up to price here, and what I like to do right away is I want to figure out if this is our supply zone, or if there's something else going on, right? So I go up to this wick and I look to the left. All right, and what do I see? I come across and I see this shit. This is where it gets a little choppy, guys. So right now it's, you know, touching this candle. All right. So now I look at where this wick's up to, right? Well, that's inside what, this candle here, which really would be this candle, because you're looking at the closing prices. So we're looking at the body of the candle constantly. So I would say that this is actually our supply zone here, this candle, this bullish candle here. And the reason is that when I get on that closing price, I look to the left and the right, and there's no, you know, there's no bullish, there's no closing. The candles aren't closing inside of it, or I'm sorry, it's not closing inside the body of another candle, right? So if I snap the line on this, I hit this, which is a bearish candle, which means the next one's way up here. So that's kind of our wall, right? And I look to the right and I say, okay, that goes over this candle, goes over this candle, which is the wick we're talking about and dealing with. So I'm like, okay, now, you know, what do I look at here? You know, yeah. So let's snap this on, and then we're going to work our way back down. Maybe I got ahead of myself here a little bit. Why was I over on that candle? Oh, I'm sorry. I was looking. Yeah. So let's snap a line on this candle though, because this is, I don't want to fucking lose everybody. So snap the line here, the line there. Let's just leave that for a minute. I'm not going to do the box yet. Okay, working our way back down. Now I see that this is demand, or I'm sorry, this is supply. And you can see how we retested it here, right? We got that closed. We was inside of it, but obviously sellers pushed it down. You got the sell off. All right, so what's the next zone down? That would be this candle here, right? This bullish candle right here. So let's snap lines on that fucker and see what it looks like. And I think this will encompass, yeah. So, and now you can see why this one really is, you know, king bitch right now. And you can put a rectangle on this one up here, guys. I just didn't do it right off the bat. Oh, no, you know what? I see it now. Okay. God damn. I couldn't remember why I was in there up that high. All right. So this is not valid anymore, but you guys see how this was tested multiple times? So tested again, sold off each time. Now, once we got this close above here, it does invalidate it. So I'm going to get rid of it. Sorry about that. I wasn't zoomed out enough. But what it means though, is that, okay, now what I'm looking for are what candles didn't touch here, what did, and we get a couple, it gets a little interesting here. So, but you do want to work through the whole process, guys. And let's zoom in a little bit here. Let me take this candle back. All right, so let's zoom in where we can see this. So we know that this up here is a, you know, let's put our box in that while I'm still thinking about it. So we're gonna put our rectangle in here. All right. So we know that that is supply, right? These wicks don't touch it, but that is going to be our upper candle. So let's put a box in that one. Send it back. Okay, so this candle, right, which is the next, you know, if I'm stepping my way down, right, I see that, okay, the wick of that bullish candle here obviously goes into this supply zone. So next candle down from that would be here, this bullish candle. And again, this wick does not go into this supply zone. So that means that this is valid. So we'll snap lines on the body of this guy too. All right, we'll put our rectangle in it. And voila, we have ourselves our supply zones. And you can tell, right, there's not another, you know, the next, you know, bullish candles down here, which obviously this is above. So that gives us those are our 5-minute supply zones. Now it kind of gets choppy here, right? If I was looking at this and I'm looking for a main supply zone, all right, what would I be looking for here? I'd be looking for this guy right here, okay? I'd be looking for this consolidation here. And the reason is that this pushes up, and yeah, it doesn't quite get to it, but it gets pretty fucking close, right? We get pretty close to this and then it sells off hard. So that tells me that most likely this is the supply zone here, or I should say, you go to like a 15-minute, and let's see if something pops out, you know, that makes the most sense. You know, I see this candle here as a 15-minute zone, which would encompass these guys. So then I see this candle here. And let's do that. Let's look at, you know, this is a little extra, but again, we're gonna make this purple. Hopefully you guys can tell the difference. But if that's our purple 15-minute zone, now we have a test and rejection, right? So we have our test and rejection and a retest. Okay. So hold on for a minute.
Now let's talk about that very last green candle.
Hold on, Dale. I'll tell you here. Hey, go with mom. Go. Sorry, my son came up here. All right, so to finish, I just want to show you guys here. The reason I like to zoom out. Let's see, this is where I wish I need to fucking get rid of these 15-minute zones. Hold on a second. Or these 5-minute zones. Yeah, so those two are going to be 15 minutes. So watch this. I'm going to make these to where we can turn them on and off, man, because I think this would make more sense. What candle were you talking about, Dale?
The very last candle.
Like this guy here?
Yep.
Okay, well, yeah, that's just current price. So I mean, it doesn't, what I'm talking about. Well, let me get back to where I can turn these off and I'll show you guys what I was getting at here. Cause I think there's two, like we could talk about the supply zones down here too, but my point was the 5-minute zones were pretty scattered, right? And we didn't quite touch that 5-minute supply. But the thing is, if you go up one time frame to the 15-minute, right? Now you see that really the 15-minute is the one that's giving you the clear signal, right? And I would tell you that this is going to be our main supply zone when we see it pushing north. But I think it'll be easier to see if I can turn the 5-minute zones off, because they're just a pain in the ass, in my opinion. All right, so what color is that?
In order to have a zone, do you need to have a bullish candle and a bearish candle? You know, in other words, like for instance, that last green candle that Dale referred to, would you not be able to create a zone because there hasn't been anything else closing after that?
What do you mean? Off of this candle?
Correct.
Yeah, no, you wouldn't use this candle. Yeah, it's not that you need a red candle, you just need, I mean, this would be your zone here. This bullish candle, right? So it's inside of that candle. But yeah, you need, it's not so much that you need a bearish candle afterwards. You just need price to move. You need something afterwards, yeah. And it doesn't have to just be bearish, although it normally will be a bearish candle. But you can literally see price gap down and have a bullish candle sitting here below it, right? Just because price gapped, you know, down to here and then pushed up, it just that would give you the indication that this is going to be your supply zone.
And also it's higher, right? That's kind of the main.
Well, it has
thing.
to be higher. Yeah, no,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
It has to be higher. And that's what I mean. Yeah. So it's not that it has to have a bearish candle, because, and I think it's I don't know, like, I know that's a common,
I see it now.
you know, there's a common, it is like most people see, hold on, sorry, I'm trying to.
Yeah, I think I answered my own question by realizing that to the left it's higher, and if you're looking for supply, you got to go to the highest.
Yes, you always want to go to the highest. Yeah, no, that's definitely a good point to point out. All right, let's real quick.
It's also inside.
That's the thing, right? It's inside. And again, this is a 15-minute zone here, right? So we can go back to the 5. I wanted to show you guys here was just the fact that if you look at the 5-minute zones, right? We saw how we didn't quite touch this supply zone, right? This top one here. We came up in price, we got very close, right? But it's like, okay, we didn't quite touch that, even though it looks like it wanted to, and then it retested and rejected. It just, and it gets really choppy. So it's like, if you're having trouble finding a 5-minute supply zone, if we just hop up one time frame, right? And now I'll turn off the 5-minute zones, turn on the 15-minute. You'll see that, okay, there's a 15-minute zone right here, 15-minute supply zone. And we did test it, right? We tested it and closed under. We got the bearish signal. And then we got the retest right here. And then we got the big sell off, right? So that was my whole point of that, guys. It's just it's not that there aren't other, you know, there are other 15-minute supply zones below here. But the thing is, I would rather, we'll focus on the 5-minute, but if the 5-minute gets choppy, switch, you know, just bump up. And same thing, if the 15-minute looks choppy, go to the 30-minute or the hourly, right? Because what's going to happen is it'll all of a sudden, one of the time frames, right, will give you a clear, all of a sudden the picture will look very clear, right? It'll become very clear that, okay, this is where price rejected, right? So even though the 5-minute chart looked very choppy here, right? Like the 5-minute chart kind of looked all over the place. This zone is not correct here, of course. Let's just turn that off, turn the 5-minute on. Like that shit looks choppy to me, right? And it's like, okay, well, why did we reject here? We didn't quite hit this 5-minute zone. So all we have to do is just, you know, jump up a time frame and take a look at it and say, okay, now this makes more sense. You know, now I can look at this and I can say, this is the supply zone, right? The next one up would be right here, this big bullish candle. Because if that line went across, you can see how we hit it multiple times, right? And would reject. So again, that means that this is valid, and we can see the clear indication of how we tested this and closed. Now, the difference here though is that you would want to wait. Okay. Well, this is at 9 a.m., right? So at 9 a.m., again, we got the test twice here. This is very clear indicator, but you would want to, if you're going to be bullish at this point, like at 9:30 at open, you would want to see a 15-minute close. You'd want to see 9:45, right? Close above this 398.16. You know what I'm saying? So you'd have to wait for that 15-minute close. So whatever time frame you jump up to, that it makes it clearer. The trade-off is that you have to wait for that candle to close. And obviously the larger the time frame, the longer you're going to have to wait. So that's kind of like the give and take. Hopefully that makes sense.
Hey, Alex, do you have any rules for how many dollars a zone can represent? Like I had created I think it was a daily, so it would sort of make sense that the candle was really big and represented a lot of dollars. But do you have any kind of, not rules maybe, but guidelines for, once a zone encompasses, like, say, I don't know, $3, $4, $5, that it's likely like a little too big?
No, actually, that's the thing. What you'll find is that no, there's no rule on it. Now, when something is huge, what I'll do is I'll just look for the smaller time frames. Okay, because normally it'll have multiple, you can look for the 4-hour supply zones inside of a daily supply. That's just massive. But the thing is, if you're looking for the date, and the reason for that, James, is that what happens is, even though it's a huge zone, the signals still are the same thing, right? We don't, once we see a close, let's say we have a demand zone that's just huge, right? Let's say it's like $5 on the S&P, which happened, right? Which happened back in June, I think. We had a huge fucking huge demand zone down in the June lows. The thing is, we saw that act as demand multiple times. And until we got every time we got a close above it, we saw a push in price. So the thing is, even though it's a huge zone, the signal is still active and it's still correct, I guess, or I don't know what the right word is. You know what I mean? It's still valued. Or
Still valid. Yeah.
It's still valid. Right. Exactly. So that's why it's important to stick to the body of the candle. But if you're looking at it and you're saying, dude, how the fuck do I, this is so big, how do I take a trade off of it? Well, then go to the smaller time frames, or even maybe jump up to to the weekly, because maybe the weekly is a tighter, gives you a tighter range, right? The idea is to kind of build the picture of the chart, because once you find the time frame that gives you that clear picture, that's normally going to be the one that's going to give you the clear indication, and that will, that works the best, I suppose you could say. So yeah, no, there's no rule. You definitely want to stay as what's the word, yeah, you definitely want to stay like tight to the rules of using the body, and making sure it's not dipping inside the body of another one and all that shit. So that's going to be your best bet. So hopefully,
Cool.
Does that answer your question, man?
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
Totally.
Yeah, cool. All right, so let's go back to the 5-minute and finish this out. The 15-minute, again, guys, that was, the whole point of that is just to show you how, if you consolidate the time frames, it works better. And maybe it's worth doing some 15-minute zones on SPY. I mean, it's, again, I would suggest, honestly, you guys, that you even if you got to rewatch the video, even if you watch it on fast or you skip through, actually copying these zones down onto your own charts, number one, because that will help kind of solidify it into your head. But the other thing is that if you want to practice the 15-minute zones, and then post them to the zones practice chat channel, and I'm happy to review them and go through and just make, we can, or I can go through and do the 15-minute zones afterwards and kind of show you guys what I have, type of thing. Because it'd be, that's if you guys are trading SPY. But if you are trading SPY a lot, obviously I would use this. And if you're trading the leveraged ETFs, right, so the 3x leverage, I would also, again, I still use SPX 500 USD, but I would be, if you want to chart SPY, I would use this to trade those other charts, right? In my opinion, I've always used the underlying. I mean, to actually get specific entries, you can use those leverage ETFs, but remember that the zones are going to matter the most here, compared to what they will on, SPXS or SPX. I can't think right now. You know what I'm talking about, the leveraged ETFs for SPY, though. So all right, so let's keep going with this. Or we have our supply zones. I think I'm good with that for now, because what happens, guys, is we'll see price open up way the fuck up here, and all these will be irrelevant, right? Well, you know what? Let's go to this one here. Let's just do this big fat fucker here. So the assumption here now is that this is Yeah, let's do this. The assumption is that this big guy is our most recent, right? So that we would have, that would be the bottom of it. This would be the top, the top of this can you guys see that? Hopefully, oops. You guys see, right? The body of this big bullish candle. What I want to see though is I want to go back. What's that price? 403.54. Let's go back. Yeah. What I say 403.54, right? So 403.54 would be somewhere in between here. So what I'm looking for here are bullish candles, right? On the 5 minute. So I know I have one here that's underneath price, so that's not going to matter. This one here is above. This is a time, and talk about a fucking useless candle for us. I mean, you guys see that, right? That's as doji-ish as you can fucking get. I mean, there's nothing. There's not even a zone there. I mean, there's a zone, there's an open and closing price, but it's just the same fucking price.
It's like a 5 cent difference.
Oh yeah, it's crazy. So let's see though. Let's see what happens. Do we wick up to that? Do we even get close? Yeah. No, we don't. Okay. So good. So what that means, right? And what I'm checking here is now I know that this is that little skinny fuck, nothing zone, but it is a level, guys. So just keep that in mind. I'll probably keep that. I'm going to keep that in the 5 minute charts. But what that tells me is we don't even wick up to that, so that this is definitely your 5 minute supply. So look what happens, right? We had that huge hourly supply, right? But we also have this huge 5 minute supply relatively huge, right? Relative to the other 5 minute zones. And the reality is that that's just the way it is, right? That's going to be your supply zone. So that's a perfect example, James, of kind of what you're talking about. I know that's not a couple dollars, but for a 5 minute zone, that's fucking huge, right? But the thing is, you're going to get your signals off of that. So, so unfortunately, you want to keep that. Now, the thing that you could do is, again, we could hop to a 15 minute and say, okay, now I have a little bit better signal, right? So now let's move this shit to the 5 minute.
Are you going to grab that one just at the top that's to the right of the wick? I'm just curious.
Yeah, for the 15 minute. Yeah, I am. I'm going to grab this one. The only thing I'm going to check first is, or no, I'm not going to check anything first. I'm going to grab this one with the 15 minute candles for sure. In purple. And that's the thing. So maybe the 15 minute zone for SPY, right, is going to be the better intraday play, because what happens right now, we have, let's move that to the 15 minute and we can go boom, boom, and we'll have both on, right? So the thing is, now, yeah, so that's purple. So we can bump that to the back. Yeah, the thing is now we have, a couple clear indicators, right? We know that, all right, that's going to be a 15 minute supply. There is another one here, okay? So I can tell you that this bullish candle is going to be another supply zone. And the reason is that it encompasses all of this here, right? This price action here is in that. But again, is that the main 15 minute supply? Not really, I know the one above it's what really matters. The one thing I want to do too is just go back in time. So we're talking 403.54 again. I don't think there's anything. No. So there's nothing there. So this is the relevant. This is relevant here. This is what matters right here on the 15 minute. So again, guys, yeah, this would be my main target to short, right? 402. 402 to 402.14 to 402.43. I would look for a push up into that and then a close below. The thing is, you do have some choppiness here. So maybe it's worth turning on your hourly, right? And saying, well, where is that? Oh, and look at that. Look what happens, right? Your 15 minute resistance is the same price as your hourly resistance. Go figure, right? And look down here. Your fucking, your 15 minute supply, right, on this first zone where we rejected is the hourly supply level, right? It's the bottom of the hourly zone, and the bottom of this lower 15-minute zone. So now you're seeing how it start kind of coming together, right? Let's turn on the 5-minute, just take a look. All right, so the 5-minute gives us a different skew. It's a little bit higher, so I'm going to turn that off because it's just fucking stupid. But you know, this tells me, okay, so now we have the hourly and the 15-minute lining up. So what can we do? What can we do with this? This means that we can trust our hourly zones, but now we can wait. We don't have to wait for the hourly close. We can wait for the 15-minute close to get an early signal, right? I mean, you still want to see where the hour closes, but if you're looking for an early signal, at least now we can move it down to the 15-minute, right? And we can wait for that 15-minute candle to close instead of having to wait for that hourly candle to close. So hopefully that makes sense, you guys. And you guys see that, right? See how these zones interact, right, with the hourly?
That's great. That's great.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, Alex, do you tend to take trades on the time frame? You know, if it's in other words, like on the 5-minute, on the 15-minute, do you tend to wait until you get a closing candle and then say, okay, this is confirmed now, my move is confirmed, I'm gonna jump in, versus, you know, not waiting until candles close, whether they're 5-minute or 15-minute or even hourly?
I mean, it depends. No, a lot of times I'll do, so like, if I saw this here, right, I saw us push up and we touched this 15-minute, let's say we opened, right, on Monday, and we pushed up, there's a good chance that I would short this as we touch this the first time. But what I also know is that, you know, I have a higher risk of tagging out here. So I know that I need to have like, I have less confidence, right? So I want to have a tighter stop, or I need to have more risk tolerance, right? Like, so that's the thing. Yeah, no, I like taking the trade. I mean, you'll hear me take trades off of the first time it tests it, right? But a lot of times, you know, especially on the 5-minute, a lot of times I just wait for the candle to close. You know, the issue is that there are times like I see this, right? And, you know, I don't know, a lot of times, man, even when I jump in early, we end up getting the retest anyways. So it's better to wait and get the signal, okay, and miss a trade than it is to jump in and then bag hold, right? Or be stuck, you know, with a losing trade that really gives you a big hit. Even if you're managing the position size, you still don't really want to take a huge hit if you don't have to, right? So you have a better opportunity. So hopefully that answers your question, James. I personally do both, right? But I'm much more risk adverse than a lot of people are, right? But I'm also very quick at getting out and just, you know, managing the next trade. And I mean, so, you know, I don't want to, so I mean, you just kind of have to find which one works for you. There is a good chance. I mean, there's a pretty good probability that when we touch this 15-minute zone again, you know, and maybe it goes up and touches that 5-minute one, which is up here, which is this 398.21, but maybe it wicks through and touches that and then drops, but it's probably going to pull back, right? It's the first time it touches that. So, I mean, yeah, you can get a scalp out of it, you know, but again, am I going to take this trade and say, okay, before I get a signal from this, you know, before the candle closes, I'm not going to take this trade and then say, okay, I'm good. I'll put my stop, you know, up here, you know, way up here. And it's definitely, you know, it's going to go down here, because that's just not true. We got to see it. You know, you don't get that real signal and that confirmation until we get the test with the close underneath. So you do need the candle close and the retest a lot of times to have that confidence, which did happen here, right? It happened here on the 15-minute and the hourly. So what, you know, it probably will happen again if that's what's going to happen. But the other thing is that I could buy in short here, right? Scalp it down to here. And in that same 15-minute, it still pushes up and closes up above. So you can still take that scalp, right? And if you're going to be quick with your plays, you could take that short for you know, the rejection that first time it touches it, but then, you know, and then just take your profits as it bounces down, and still have that candle close above and get the long signal from it, right? And then at that point, if we got the long signal on the 15-minute here, we can say, all right, cool, right? We're going to wait. We're going to see if it retests it, right? Which I assume it would. If we got to close above, you'd see it come down and retest this. You buy long, you know, you take a bullish position and play it to the upside. So, I mean, you know, it's just, it's really personal preference, man. And I do both. So.
Gotcha. Okay. And how about if you go down from that supply zone and you go down and you got that huge wick and then you've got this action to the right there. Now, if you, that looks like a long play for sure right in there. Would you be, but I don't see, any kind of a demand zone. I mean, it's looking kind of obvious that you're going to be able to possibly do a long because you got wick. Nope. Wick. The bulls keep pushing it up, right? And so what about that for a long? Would you see that?
Yeah, well, there's definitely there's the hourly demand right here, right? So I would be watching that, but on a 5 minute or 15 minute, okay, let's just say from a 15 minute, what did I do here? Oh, that's got to go in here. Yeah, sorry, I'm just trying to match these up as we go.
No problem. And I noticed on Friday there was a pretty clear play where it was on the 5 minute and it was a bunch of little tiny red candles, but each of them had really long wicks. And I think it was like 4 or 5 in a row on a 5 minute chart. And I was like, oh my God, is that signal bullish or what? And
Well, yeah, so two things I would do here, right? Looking for demand. If I'm looking, I'm looking down in this area here, I would see, if originally it was this, right? This was our 5 minute demand, this bearish candle right here. But we did get, so, and that's why it's important to know where your other zones are, the hourly. So I see this guy right here, and I know that that's a demand zone, okay? The reason is that, and there are other demand zones here, but again, this makes sense, right? I'm looking for the body of a bearish candle, right? That's the lower end of price. And then I look to the left here, right? I'm like, oh, hold on a second. Someone's fucking beat. Give me 1 second, guys.
No worries.
This is great stuff.
Yeah, I think it's starting to finally sink in. Just got to keep at it. Gets a little confusing, with the daily, the weekly, the hourly, and so on. But still,
He explains it so well.
All right. So yeah, so here's the thing. You have demand here, okay? And when I looked at the bottom of that wick, which I know it's hard to see here, guys, probably, but I'm looking to the left, right, from the bottom. There's no wick on that candle. So again, I'm just looking from the bottom. I look to the left and I see already it's underneath this bearish candle, and there's the next bearish candle in line is way down here, right? So I say, okay, if it's way down here, then that tells me this is demand. All right, so then I can work my way up again. Just same way we were doing supply and working our way back. It doesn't mean there are more demand zones down here, but we're not worrying about that right now. I just want to verify that this is the demand, and there's not like a bearish candle like right here that it's touching, right? So now I can work my way up and I can say, okay, well, where's demand? And I would say, I would look at this here and I'd say, okay, is that which candle? I'm looking at this guy, but if I snap a line across, right, it looks like I'm over this guy's candle here, which wicks down into this. So that's not really valid. So this would be an area that I would watch, although I don't like, it's not my favorite, right? But the thing is, I would still watch this for, especially if I was grabbing something up here. So now I'm going to work my way up again, right? What's the next lowest, red candle, right? It's this guy here, the body of it, right? I don't give a fuck about wicks. We don't care about wicks at all when it comes to this shit. What we care about is it's not wicking into the body of another candle, right? Well, like this one here, this bearish candle here. Can you guys see that? This bearish candle wicks down into the zone created by the body of this candle. So that's what I mean by when I say that's all I care about with wicks, right? So even though if this was going to be a demand zone, I know it's not, because it wicks down into the demand zone here and gets bought back up. And then obviously the next candle does the same thing. Price gets pushed down, it touches the demand zone, gets bought back up, and then we see it push higher. So, pretty pretty straightforward that this is demand. Now this one comes down, only makes it this far, right? But we also know, guys, that this is a, there's a couple things going on here, right? One is, there's buyers sitting above and below these zones. They start to buy. So if people are taking profits on the short quickly, but the other thing is you got to look at the hour, you got to look at these other zones, right? We're still inside this hourly zone. So that there's just going to be buyers here. And look what happens if you wait. Let's say you buy, even if maybe you buy a little early, you buy here, but your stop, is underneath the zone. You play a drawdown here. But the real push, the real play comes after we get, it comes off of the top of this hourly zone.
And that's that
So-
that's that area right there where your mouse just was, right?
Yeah.
Look at all those, look at those bearish
Yeah.
candles.
Yeah.
And there's like buy, no, we're not going to let it go below. No, we're buying. And then
Yeah.
boom.
And that's because of this, right? Sorry, not 5 minutes. It's because of the hourly. And if we turn, if you turn on that hourly zone, that's why right there. And look what time it is, right? 2:30, 2:40, 2:45, 2:50, right? So I mean, where's the 2 o'clock candle? Right here. So 2 o'clock, right? So the 159 closed here. 150, the 1 p.m. candle closed right here. And then the 2 o'clock candle comes in and it's just fighting it the whole time. So that's 100%. And look where it's sitting right on, it's trying to stay on top of this hourly zone, this hourly demand. And the hour actually closes right here, up here. So you get that. So we never actually got the hourly retest here, right? But if you see this in real time, absolutely, man, you could say, okay, I know there's hourly demand here. I know that the 5 minute demand is down here, but this is still being bought up, right? And you just take your try with it. The only thing I would say is I would probably wait for this candle to close, because in real time, right? If all you have, let's say you're up to here, you get this pullback here. This becomes your demand zone, right? Like, so if all you had were these candles, right? You get this candle form, then you have a bullish candle. This is your demand zone, the most recent. Okay, so let's snap a line to it. And this is where people get thrown off. And again, I get shook out sometimes too, but this is where just waiting for a candle close will really clear the air, right? So now this is your demand zone here, right? We get push up, comes back down, tests it, tries to test it, right? You test it here, closes above again. Now you get a close, right? You test it further south. It keeps closing, right? Now you got this close below. Okay. You guys see that, right? You get this close below. And that's, you can look at that and say, damn, that's a short signal, right? Now, if you know though, that there's hourly demand right here, even though, it got below the demand line, right? But the reality is that it's still the top, like this is still the top of the hourly demand zone. This doesn't mean that it's going to head south from here, right? I might even have taken that short there, okay? But the thing is, if you just waited, if you're thinking, okay, you see the price action on these candles and saying, man, this thing just keeps getting bought up. They do not want to let it go. Well, now you get this bullish candle. It closes back above the 5 minute zone, right? And you say, oh, it's 250. I'm gonna grab calls and just see what happens, right? So once you get that close above, you can do a lot of things. It just gives you some more, what's the right word? It just gives you some more confidence. And then here's where the candle closes, 255. And granted, you would say, hey, this is a 5 minute supply zone, right? We just closed right at supply. Well, guess what happened though? We just got the hourly close above the hourly demand, right? So like that, because this is the 255 candle. So this at 3, you get that 2 p.m. candle closes right here, right where my cursor is, right? So the cool thing is with this is that it's closing right here. The cool thing is now that it's like, okay, I know I'm under this 5 minute supply, but again, the hourly just closed bullish again. So like I would just stay in those calls and that would have worked out, right?
Can you do me a favor and add the 9 EMA onto there?
Yeah, I don't think I have it on. I don't think I have any indicators on this one. So yeah, there it is.
Look at that. Right. Remember you said, yeah, not that, right. Go back just one.
This
There you
one
go.
here,
Right there.
yeah.
And you said that you said, hey, you know what? Once this closes above here, you know,
Yeah.
that, and boom, that 9 EMA. I just like, sometimes I like one more thing to instill confidence for myself, you know?
I mean, yeah, no, it was pretty clear. I mean, I was pretty confident we were going to push up Friday, you know, I mean, it was later, you know, it happened later than what I thought, but at the same time, you know, it doesn't really matter, right? What time it happens. I mean, it made sense to see this drift up end of day with the OPEX, with the options expiration. So yeah, no, and working the 9 EMA, man, that's one of the few. I mean, I like the daily moving averages, and then I have the 9 EMA up quite a bit. And I like it on the 5-minute, I like it on the hourly, I like it on the daily even. You know, it's just a good indicator overall, in my opinion. Like if you look at it on the hourly, that's something I don't think a lot of people do. The 9 EMA on the hourly is very helpful, in my opinion. You know, it doesn't, again, it's you got to know what type of time frame you're looking at, right? But the thing is, like, follow the hourly 9 EMA. You know, we never got below it this whole day. So like, why wouldn't we be bullish this day, you know? Like, even though we had a big pullback, right, that day, buying it, it's not like we're going to keep dropping. There's just a lot. I like the 9 EMA for sure. So
Yeah, and the farther away it is, the more powerful the move is. But yeah, to go back to your hourly zone right there in that little bull bear battle, that's beautiful. Yeah, I love that. It's like,
yes, so definitely keep the hourly, you know, and again, that's this demand right here. You know, yeah, you want to keep, and that I would keep probably all of them. You know, I would keep the hourly and the 5-minute up at least. Oop, what did I just do? Damn it. I'm an idiot.
that object tree is really important. I'm glad you pulled that up, because I gotta organize my stuff like that. Turning them on and off is really powerful.
Yeah, no, super helpful in my opinion. Sorry, I thought I put a 5-minute in the fucking, maybe I didn't. Yeah, anyways. Yeah. Yeah, no, I like it, man. I think it's worth doing. Once they're divided up, it's way easier to look at, you know, but again, and that's the cool thing, you can just turn it on and off, right? So now you don't have to have all this shit on, right? You can just, but now you know, you can flick to it on the 5-minute, say, oh yeah, you know, that's right, we're bouncing off the top of this hourly demand zone, right? And then just go back in and turn it off and work from the 5-minute. So yeah, that's why the 5-minute is not always your friend. Like, this is a bad, you know, this is a bearish signal. And if you had you know, if this was your supply zone at the time, this was the next supply zone, right? Before price got above it, this would have been your resistance, you know, your 5-minute resistance, and this was your 5-minute supply. So what happened here? You know, price pushed up, right before the hourly close. If you didn't know that the hourly close just closed bullish, you would look at this and say, man, on a 5-minute, we pushed up and we came up short, right? So we pushed up, we touched that supply zone and we closed underneath it. So now I just want the retest, right? Which would have opened, tried to push up, push down, you know, whatever it did. And normally when you close the hour, guys, look and see what the next, hold on a second. Asher, hey, dude, leave them open. Fucking shutting French doors, the locks are out, fucking banging everything up. You want to look and see where the move is, right? So this, it's funny that this initial move, let's look at the 1-minute real quick, because I want to show you guys something I think will make a difference.
And I just wanted to say, Alex, I wouldn't know anything about getting faked out on the 5-minute candles.
Oh, dude, no shit. I know, and it happens a lot, but you gotta put it in comparison. And that's why, like, looking at the SPY, and I think we talked about this with SPX, the 15-minute had been a lot clearer than the 5-minute, right? And I know it's not as fast as a lot of us like, but it's worth taking a look at, you know, which is way easier once you guys get better at finding these zones in the first place, right? I mean, it just makes more sense. look at the 1 minute here. This is the 5 minute zone, right? So this would have been the 259 candle, right? We pushed up, we closed. The next candle, this is something to keep in mind. So 3 o'clock candle opened. What?
Is that yours?
Yeah. You mean that was in the dish?
Oh yeah. I
Yeah.
just wondering.
Yeah, I mean you can have it, but
Really?
yes, you can have it.
Yeah.
All right, so this candle closed the hour here. The next one opened, and the first thing it did was push down. All right, that's huge, guys, right? So the first move was down. It's normally the opposite direction, right? Like this first push where it goes down, that is not a bearish indication. So even though this 5 minute candle, right? This is the 1 minute chart, but this 5 minute candle closed underneath the zone, the supply zone, right? The next as soon as the next hour opened up, the next 5 minute candle opened up, right? We got to push down, and that got bought up, right? And that to me, normally when you see that candle open and it goes in the wrong direction, it's normally going in the opposite direction, I guess you could just say. And that's something that we see quite often. So just a side note, you'll hear me say that where I'm like, I don't like the way it's moving first. Like I'd like to see it move, it's like the retest. Like if we get a close underneath supply, I want to see a bullish push on the next candle. Like when it first opens, I want to see it push up and then sell off, right? I don't like it when it opens and it sells off, because normally that first move is not correct. It's not the right move. So, but all right, so that's what is that? Is that all of our 5 minute? There we go. Okay. So yeah, that's basically, let me get rid of a couple zones here though. So this is no longer valid. All right, let's get rid of this one first, and I'll show you guys something else too. Once we had this 5 minute close, check out what happens. If this is your supply zone, okay, right? We got faked out here, and then we got this big push up. Well, look what happens. It comes right back down and it fucking retests it. It doesn't touch it perfectly, but you're within pennies, right? So even if you miss this move up, don't get bummed out. Even if you get tagged out, you tag out above this wick, boom, I'm out, whatever the case. The thing is, be ready, right? Because this thing it almost always, it seems, comes back. It retraces back, a certain, at some point, right? Or a certain amount. It doesn't always come right back to the zone. This is perfect right here. And it would have given you a beautiful entry for especially the 0 DTs. I mean, shit, you almost would have, if any play you took here, you wanted to close out up here and buy back in here anyways, in my opinion. This is a great entry here, because then the next move is just boom, right? In 10 minutes, you're fucking all the way up here near 396. So you went from 394.80 to 396 in 10 minutes. That's a big move on SPY, obviously. And then if you had held it into the end of the day, you would have gotten right up here towards the end. So although holding it that last 10 minutes didn't pay off very well, did it? These things are crazy though. Look at this move, guys. So when you see a dip like that, and where does it come back to? If your price is up here, where's your demand? Right? Your demand's right here. Right? So you get a big push back, boom, bounces, closes inside, right? At 955, you could have bought fucking, SPY calls, buy the 290 or the 395 calls that just got fucking wrecked right here. Blah, got puked on, right? Fucking lost. We probably went back down to fucking 10 cents and then got bought up and whoop, right back up, 2 or 396.25. Those fucking 395s were probably worth fucking $1.50 or something here, or whatever. I mean, it literally, so that's how you got, we can make money from this quick. And yeah, it blew through this demand zone. This would have been another demand zone at the time. Okay. Yeah, it blew through that. But at the same time, like, who cares? You got to know that this one's sitting here too, right? We just know that it bounced off and it bounced and it gave you a chance to close, and you get the retest on this. So that would have been a great play right there, just watching it. I'll tell you what, I've said this a couple times though. We could literally just trade the end of the day, guys, right? This, especially with the 0 DTs, even if it was just 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, wait for the fucking, just wait for, the last hour or 2 hours of the day, start paying attention. It doesn't mean we're not watching the charts and shit, but just go really light on positions and just play a few plays at the end of the day. And I think, we'd make, there'd be a lot of money being made anyways. I shouldn't say more money because we have good plays throughout the day too, but it seems to be better directional. Like we get all the shakeout happening, right? We, by this time, we're starting to base and push back up. I mean, there's just a lot going on here. So, and by the way, this demand zone is still valid, right? This is still the valid demand zone. So this is what pushed down into it here. Yeah, there's another one right here, you could say. I'm not going to put that on it because again, it's so fucking close. I don't even like it. It'd be like me putting, well, yeah, I don't know. Well, I don't know. Should we do it? Let's just fucking do it. That way you guys can have it. I need to take a picture of this too and do it, but all right.
Alex,
I'm going to put this here first. Yeah, what's up?
in this last few weeks in this very choppy market, you're right. The last 2 hours is the best. It takes all day to settle down.
Yeah, it's been pretty crazy like that. It's I know it's in hindsight it's 2020, but I will say, like, we noticed that it wasn't like we just noticed it yesterday, right? Or Saturday. We noticed this a few times already. So, if you notice that shit beginning of the week, don't be afraid to say, hey, you know what, I'm not going to trade, until the last hour. I'm going to, if I don't see anything, I'm just not going to take it. I'm going to wait for the last hour of the day, last 2 hours of the day, and and just hit some of these bangers, right? Hit some of these fucking massive moves and they have been massive, right? And just stick to these zones, right? And just see what plays out. A dip like this, the key playing these is playing, in the money, just like right at the money, right? If you're going to buy the dip, you buy at the money. I would either buy the 295s or maybe the 395 or 39, probably not the 396, but the 395s would be perfect here, in this demand zone. And you don't know you're going to buy them, so you have them set up. You don't know if those are going to be the ones that you want or not. But as price pushes down that last 5 minutes, you see the candle bounce, and then and it closes right here. You're ready to go, right? You get this next little dip, tries to push back down, and those things are worth, they probably were only worth 10 cents or 20 cents or whatever, and you just buy fucking 20 of them, a few $100. And I bet they went, if they were 10 cents here, they were probably $1 up here, right? I mean, that's just me guessing. I have no idea. It might have been a bigger spread, might have been more expensive right here, whatever. They were technically in the money, but man, you're getting close when this kept dipping. Like, all the confidence gets drained out of that trade, because you got to remember, even if SPY closes at 295, right? If it closes the week at 295, the 295 calls are worth nothing. They're worth exactly zero, right? You have to actually be in the money at least one strike before you actually have any intrinsic value on that contract. Because you can't, you can, if it closes at 295, right? You have the 295 calls. Well, guess what? If you went in and said, hey, you know what? I have the right to buy these at 295. They would say, yeah, you do. It's 295 is what it closed at. Good luck, go home, And that's anyways, that's just a little side note there. But if you're buying, buy at the money or slightly in the money, these things fucking ripped, and of course, even on this, this pullback here, this retest of the supply zone that I deleted already, that was pretty sweet. So, there's just a lot of ways to trade this, I guess. So, but yeah, any other questions, guys? Because I'm going to wrap this up, go hang with the family for, an hour. But like I said, I will be around. I'll be on the computer here. So if you guys want to practice anything, right, post it in the zones practice chat. And then I can, I'm happy to get back on. We can chat some, whatever.
That was great. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome, man. No. And remember, guys, any question is fine. Like, there's no dumb questions. There's no, I know I repeat myself a lot, so hopefully, I try to keep it as focused as possible, but don't be afraid to ask questions on shit. So, all right, good to go.
Right on. Yeah. Thanks, Alex.
Yeah, no problem, man. Yeah. And like I said, I'll be around, guys. If you want to tag me, I'm happy to hop back on a call, whatever. I know we didn't do ship for classes this past week, so I wanted to make sure I was here and available and like try to make it. And I'm gonna, we're gonna do futures tonight. And then obviously we'll do the Sunday pre-market call as well, so we'll go over what I'm thinking for next week, some of the zones. So we will still do all that tonight, but yeah, I'll be around. So just hit me up, tag me in the chat, and we'll go from there, guys. So
Good to see you guys.
yeah, appreciate you guys being here and hanging out. So let's see, did I post that shit? I think I posted everything chart wise. Yeah. So yeah, cool. All right, guys, have a good one. We'll chat some more here in a little bit.